All right, the objective of this lesson is that you'll be able to add and subtract unlike fractions. So in the last lesson, we were adding and subtracting like fractions. So if you remember, those were fractions that had a common denominator. So in this lesson, the fractions will not have a common denominator. These notes are from chapter 2.2 in your textbook, part B. And it's called Add and Subtract Unlike Fractions. And again, that just means that they do not have a common denominator. So if you look at this problem at the bottom, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. But if you try to add these two shapes, if you think about it for just a minute, I'll give you a second to think about it, you can probably come up with the answer. And if you can't, don't worry about it. This is meant to be something difficult. All right, so look at those two shapes. If you want to pause the video and think about it for a minute, you can. All right, on the next slide, I'm going to break this down and show how we can make this simpler. So let's do that. So I have the same two shapes again here. I have a half circle, and this is a circle with two pieces missing out of it. If I wanted to describe these using fractions, hopefully you can see that this is half of a circle, right? So this fraction would be 1/2. If I looked at this circle, count up how many pieces this circle is made up out of. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's got 6 pieces all together, and I have 4 of those pieces. So this is 4/6. So again, looking at these 1/2 plus 4/6, it's not altogether intuitive what the answer is. Now, you've done fractions before, so maybe in your mind you're already trying to find a common denominator. And yeah, you can do that. But now look at what I did with the shapes down at the bottom here. I took the half circle and I broke it up into pieces the same size as this circle. So this circle is now made up of 6 pieces. And you can see I have 3 of the 6 pieces. So if I wanted to write that as a fraction, I would write 3/6. This one is still, again, 4/6, right? But we're looking at same size shapes. So if I want to combine this and that, I can just add up how many pieces I have. So I have 3 pieces in this one. I have 4 pieces in this shape. So you can see altogether I have 7 pieces out of 6. All right? So when you have it broken up into the same size pieces, it makes it much more simple to add them together. Or you could subtract them also. Up here, that was a little more difficult to do because I didn't have similar size pieces. So the whole point of today's lesson is, how do I get from here to down here? How do I get from this half circle down to a circle that has the same size pieces as the other one? If we look at the two fractions we have, 1/2 and 3/6. How did I get from 1/2 to 3/6? Well, if you think back on your prior knowledge, hopefully you remember that I can do that by multiplying this times 3. And if I multiply the bottom by 3, then I have to multiply the top times 3. So to get from 1/2 to 3/6, I just multiplied the top and the bottom by 3. And as you can see, now we ended up with a common denominator. All right? I know a lot of you have had trouble in the past with common denominators and the concept seems confusing, but it really isn't that confusing. If you look at all I did to get from here to here, is I multiplied the top and the bottom of this by 3. So why am I allowed to do that? Why can I multiply the top and the bottom of this by 3? Well, think about this. What's 3/3? It's 1, right? Can't you always multiply something times 1 and not change its value? So when I multiply the top and the bottom by 3, I'm really just multiplying times 1, and I'm not changing its value. Likewise, you could look down here. What does 3/6 simplify to? 3/6 simplifies to 1/2. So it's really just the same number. All right, so I didn't change anything. All I did was break this up into pieces so that it were the same size pieces as the other shape. In technical terms, or more confusing terms, that means find a common denominator. But really, you're just trying to get everything into the same size pieces. All right, so let's see how we can apply this to numbers. All right, no fancy pies now. Now we just have numbers. This one is broken up into pieces of 4. This one is broken up into pieces of 2. I want them to be broken up into the same size pieces. So if you look at these, can't I turn this into a 4 so it'll be the same as this by multiplying times 2? If I multiply the bottom by 2, I got to multiply the top times 2. Whatever I do here, I got to do the same thing here. So now let's see what we have. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. I didn't do anything to the 1/4. Just like looking back at this one, did I do anything to the 4/6? No, I modified this one so it would have the same denominator as this one. So the 1/4 I didn't change. This one I multiplied top and bottom by 2. So now they're all broken up into the same size pieces. I can just add the numerators. So this is just 2 plus 1 over 4, which is equal to 3 over 4. All right. Now, if you couldn't figure out that I could change this into a 4, all right, it's pretty easy to figure out, I hope. But let's just say you couldn't. I'm going to erase this. Because if you want to see it, you can just back up the video and see it again. Here's another little trick. That 4 is called the least common denominator. If I couldn't figure out what the least common denominator was, I can always take this denominator, 4, and multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by 4. Right? So I'm just taking this 4 and multiplying the top and the bottom of this fraction by that. And I can take this 2 and multiply the top and the bottom of this one by 2. Took the 4, multiplied it over here, took the 2, multiplied it over here. And now let's see what I have. I have 4 over 8 plus 2 over 8. So I have a common denominator again. I have a different common denominator. Now I broke it up into pieces of 8 instead of pieces of 4. Okay, but the point is they're the same denominator. So now I add 4 plus 2. 4 plus 2 over 8. And I get 6 over 8. That's a different answer than I got last time, right? Last time I got 3 over 4. But what does 6 over 8 simplify to? Divide the top and the bottom of this by 2. And you get 3 over 4. So you get the same answer. The point is, you don't always have to find the least common denominator. Your life is easier if you do, because if you see here, I had to simplify my answer. The last one, it already came out simplified. But if you can't find the least common denominator, just take this denominator and multiply top and bottom of the other fraction by it. Take this denominator and multiply top and bottom of this fraction by it. And you will always end up with the right answer as long as you simplify down. Okay? Number 2. So if I look at number 2, I have a denominator of 8 and a denominator of 4. So I should always look at this and say, can I make this become an 8 by multiplying it times something? And hopefully you say, yes, I can multiply it times 2. And I got to multiply the top times 2. Whatever I do here, I got to do here. So that's going to give me a common denominator of 8. Again, just remember, if you couldn't figure that out, I could have multiplied top and bottom of this one by 4, right? I could have brought this 4 over here and multiplied top and bottom by 4. I could have brought this 8 over here and multiplied top and bottom by 8. That would have given me a common denominator of 32. I still would have gotten the right answer as long as I simplified down. I would have ended up with bigger numbers, would have been a little more work, but it still would have worked. All right? So let's finish this out. So the 5/8 I didn't do a thing to. So just bring it over. Minus 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 5 minus 2 over 8, which equals 3 over 8. All right, number 3. I have a 10 and a 2. I want them to be the same. Can I multiply 2 times something and make it 10? Yes, I can multiply it times 5. So I multiply the top and the bottom by 5. So that's going to give me 9/10, because I didn't do anything to this fraction, plus negative 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So I have 9/10 plus negative 5/10. So that's 9 plus negative 5 over 10. 9 plus negative 5 is 4. Oh, there's my dead spot on my board. Whoa. All right, let's scoot that over. Supposedly, I have another board coming. We'll see if it works. So I'm gonna scoot way over here to get away from that dead spot. 9 plus negative 5, as I said, was 4 over 10. You've always got to simplify if you can. These are both even numbers. Even numbers can always be divided by 2. So divide the top by 2, I get 2. Divide the bottom by 2, I get 5. And that's my answer. Let's look at number 4. So using the same thought process that we used on the other ones, is there something, a whole number, that I can multiply times 2 to give me 5? No, there's not. Okay? So what number can I turn both of these into? The smallest number that I can turn both of these into by multiplying them by something. Again, if you can't figure it out, multiply them times each other, which in this case actually is the least common denominator. So I'm going to take this denominator, 5, and I'm going to multiply top and bottom of this side by 5. I'm going to take this denominator of 2, and I'm going to multiply top and bottom of this by 2. So 5 times 1 gives me 5. Excuse me, 5 times 2 gives me 10. Minus negative sign. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 times 2 is 10. So my common denominator is 10. All right? So now let's write this out. I have 5 minus negative 4. 5 minus negative 4 over 10. 5 minus negative 4. I'm going to skip over my dead spot and come over here. If I did keep it, change it, that would become 5 plus the negative 4 becomes positive 4 over 10. So it's 9 over 10. And that's my answer. I can't simplify this. There's no numbers that will divide into each of these evenly. All right, so here's some practice problems for you to do. So these practice problems, if you want to try them on your own, pause the video, try them out. When you get your answers, hit play again, and you can check your answers. All right, so let's go over the answers to the practice problems. The least common denominator between 8 and 4 is 8, because I can multiply the 4 times 2 to make it an 8, so they'll be the same. I can multiply the top times 2. So now I have 3 8s plus 2 8s. Combine the 3 plus 2. This is just a way of showing my work. Equals 5 over 8. And that's your answer. Number 2. I have a 4 and a 3. There's nothing I can multiply times 3 to give me 4. All right? So what if I multiply them together? 12. So take this 3. Bring it over here. So multiply top and bottom by 3. Bring this 4 over here. Multiply top and bottom by 4. So now I have 9 over 12 Where did the 9 come from? Because I multiplied the top by 3. The 12 came from multiplying the bottom by 3. Minus 4 over 12. So I just have 9 minus 4 over 12, which equals 5 over 12. All right. Let's look at number 3, 10 and 2. Can I multiply something times 2 to make it 10? Yeah, I can multiply it times 5. Oh, that pen's writing really fat. Let's use a different one. We'll do black. No, I don't want to do black. All right, I know you're laughing at me right now. So I'll use blue. All right, so the negative 9/10. Not going to do anything with that. Just bring it over. Plus negative 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So now I have a common denominator of 10. This is negative 9 plus negative 5 over 10, right? Negative 9 plus negative 5 equals, oh, there's my dead spot. Negative 9 plus negative 5 is negative 14 over 10. Those are both even numbers, so I know I can divide them by 2. Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So there's my answer. This was the most commonly missed question in class. All right, so if you got this right, good job. Number 4, I have a denominator of 10 and a denominator of 5. So I can multiply this times 2 and the top times 2. So that gives me negative 9/10 minus 4/10. So all I'm going to do is negative 9 minus 4 over 10. Negative 9 minus 4. You can punch it in your calculator. If you do keep it, change it, you get negative 9 minus sorry. See, even the teacher makes mistakes sometimes. Let's do this again. Negative 9 minus 4. Keep it, change it, So keep the negative 9, change the minus to plus, change the 4 to negative. Over 10 equals negative 9 plus negative 4 is negative 13 over 10. All right, these two are improper fractions. We're going to talk about that in class tomorrow. So we'll talk about changing these into mixed numbers. If you already know how to change them into mixed numbers, then that's great. Then you can already start doing that. All right, so that's the end of this lesson. Hopefully, this isn't too difficult. It's really not that bad. All right, so that's it.